The op the operative word being divine.
Yes.
So good morning, everybody, and welcome. We are really happy you're here. To begin and to kind of introduce myself to everyone who's listening, because everyone here knows me. Um, I am Jan Jeremias, and for a number of years, I have been involved in some way with the health of people. For the last number of years, I took my clinical research background and my passion for holistic wellness and combined them to support people and their four-legged companions towards health and longevity. I absolutely love doing this, weaving together like a plan that combines physical, emotional, and mental needs so that they have a clear, actionable blueprint toward wellness. Um, One of my greatest joys, though, each week and just not even during the week, these sessions, but extending beyond, is my beautiful collaboration that I do with Mary Jane um, in Spirit-Born Imaginings, where we combine creativity, connection, and well-being together. And and speak with you guys. And so we are so blessed to have you all here because really this community is what I think we work for. Literally, is like we work to create, and you all add so much too. And it is because of you that these gatherings and all our workshops thrive. And so, Mary Jane, I'll pass it to you, my beautiful collaborator, friend, and truly kind friend.
Thank you. Thank you, Jan. Yeah, so for yes, the purpose of recording, because yes, it's the same here. Everybody here knows me by now, I'm pretty sure. But I'm Mary Jane or MJ, and I am the founder of my own creative studio where I help my fellow entrepreneurs step into their light and share their gifts authentically. I like to think, and from the feedback I've had, is that I help them to overcome that self-doubt and help them to find their voice, and create visuals that align with their mission and vision. And I'm always honored to be here with all of you today. And, of course, along with my beautiful friend, Jan, and she's always an inspiration for me. And we really do love our collaboration for Spirit-Born Imaginings. And our underlying mission for that is to uplift, inspire, and transform. And thank you for being part of that journey with us. And yeah, just welcome and thank you for being part of our journey.
So, Mary Jane, would you like to share our weekly poem?
Yes, for sure. So this poem, just to give a little context, is was found on the wall of Mother Teresa's Calcutta children's home, and it really captures kind of the spirit of equanimity. And it is attributed to Kent Keith, and it reads: People are often unreasonable, illogical, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people may accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you are successful, you will win some false friends and some true enemies. Succeed anyway. If you're honest and frank, people may cheat you. Be honest and frank anyway. When what you spend years building, someone could destroy overnight. Build anyway. If you find serenity and happiness, they may be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you do today, people often forget tomorrow. Do good anyway. Give the world the best you have, and it may never be enough. Give the world the best you've got anyway. You see, in the final analysis, it is between you and your God. It was never between you and them anyway. Jan.
Yep. It's just thank you. Um, yeah, thank you, Mary Jane, for sharing that poem. Um, yeah, such a I don't know, something about the poem, obviously, the poetry we add each week to these sessions always is inspiring. And this one is no different. This whole idea of, what other people think is their business and not ours. Um, So, welcome everyone, dear friends. We are grateful you've chosen to be here with us today. Our gathering today is an invitation into the heart of two intertwined practices: forgiveness and equanimity. Forgiveness is the gentle act of releasing, laying down the burdens of resentment, regret, or self blame. And opening that space, something begins to grow naturally within us: equanimity. Equanimity is often described as steadiness, a calm heart that remains balanced through life's inevitable changes of joy and sorrow, gain and loss, praise and blame. But it is also much more than that. It is the spaciousness that forgiveness makes possible, a heart wide enough to hold it all without closing, without turning away. When we forgive others, ourselves, and even life, we cultivate the soil for equanimity to take root. And when equanimity blossoms, it strengthens our capacity to forgive again, to meet the world with both balance and love. As we enter this shared practice today, we invite you to rest in that possibility that forgiveness and equanimity are not separate paths, but companions that lead us toward wholeness, peace, and an ever expanding heart. Thank you for being here, for bringing your presence and intention into this circle. And together, may we create space for release, renewal, and a steadier, more compassionate way of being.
Such a such a rich topic. It's really and not always easy to achieve, especially when we feel that the world around us might be out of control. And that's the whole thing, right? It's out of our control a lot of the times. We can only control the small spaces that we're in, but the ripple effect from that expansion hopefully will ripple out over the world. Or as somebody said to me recently, splash out over the world, which I thought was quite an interesting analogy because I never thought about it. I always think of ripples. I'm like, well, I guess waterfalls splash, so it's all good.
Absolutely. But so true. I think that we can only, like you said, control, what's in our own space. And the first thing we need to work with, and this speaks to our topic today of equanimity and forgiveness, is ourselves. I think we tend to work to control a lot of different things in our environment and different people and, immediate people that we have to be in contact with. And we try to control our situations more. And then eventually, I think for all of us, we work our way back and realize that the only thing we can control is ourselves. But I think when you're young, you think you can control everything else. I mean, that was just my experience. And, you know, and all of a sudden had to look at, you know, my own reactions and my own, the things I held on to, the resentments or the anger on the things I was angry about, and to kind of examine those things and realize that, most of the time I don't really know that people have ill intentions. I think people are sometimes unconscious, unaware, preoccupied, and we interpret it, or maybe it is like it might be rude or it might be, anger. I was having this conversation with a client yesterday who recently lost her brother, very sad. And so her parents are having a really hard time. And obviously, and she said, they're really angry at each other. Like they're constantly yelling at each other. And I just said to her, well, they're angry at it. They're not really angry at each other. But, that's the person that's in front of you. So that's where the anger is directed sometimes. But it's really not anger directed at that person. It's just angry at the situation that it happened. Oh, like all the turmoil. They're not angry at the turmoil possibly, but they're angry at the loss. And so it was just, I think that that's what happens, that we are the brunt of things. And some of those things, or most of those things, are not within our control.
Absolutely. And yeah, when we were preparing for this, right, you know, some of the articles really were saying that, it's the whole idea of like we become prisoners of our past sometimes by um, not letting go of those things that are beyond our control. Not to forget them, not to bypass them, but literally just become prisoners to them. It's like we're stuck, we can't move forward. And a lot of that has to do with forgiving ourselves for the mistakes that we may have made or we feel we have made or a path we have chosen. That's really, it's letting go of that, of how can I forgive myself, and and by forgiving myself, how can I forgive others? Uh,
Absolutely. I think that, it's very hard to forgive other people if if it's a situation that was like something that was mutual, if you haven't worked to forgive yourself. Um, there was in one of the articles, Thich Nhat Hanh had a beautiful thing. And I think to me personally is something I forget is this feeling of like, the past is in your present, is what he said. He said, every single time you are sitting to be present, the past has come with you. So it's a part of you. And not that you have to, but I think we tend to, a lot of times we think of things as like, I'm going to be present, I'm going to be in this moment, you know, the past isn't going to enter, and I'm not going to think about the future. But we have to remember, and in that way, he actually refers to it as a gift, especially in the practice of forgiveness, because he said that when you revisit the past in this kind of forgiving light of, let's say, he uses the example of someone who had like a confrontation or very like spicy conversation or interaction with their grandmother, and the grandmother had passed away. And so they could not reconcile with that person in real life. So his suggestion was like in meditation to actually bring her into mind and to have like that kind of conversation with her, you know, in mind, body, and um, soul. And so it was just kind of such an interesting thing to think of bringing something like that into the present moment to create a space for forgiveness for someone who, and I really liked it because I had one grandmother who picked on me all the time. And so our relationship was not, I was very close to one grandmother, but my other grandmother was not very nice to me. So I can resonate with that. It's like, and couldn't I bring her into my present moment to kind of bring to peace some of that, maybe um, what I didn't get to say, and, come to peace with that situation. So it made me think about that.
well, it's true because, reconciliation is not always possible in every situation, of course. We know this, but for our own healing, for making our own path and for letting go of those wrongs that have been done, that it's in order for us to transform, it's we really have to just forgive ourselves
Hmm. And I think we
and
also,
forgive them too.
Yes, and I think we also, I mean, in certain situations, I think we have to, take responsibility
Mhm.
if it was an encounter. Um, you, I'm, look at situations that I've been in with other people. It takes two to tango, and it is, I mean, for me in in situations I'm thinking about, it wasn't all that person's fault. I mean, I contributed something to that situation.
Mhm.
Taking responsibility for that and just owning it, not, and that's where like the forgiveness of self in those circumstances, I think is really important because you have to forgive yourself, and then you also have to like bring forgiveness to the other person. And so, Seamus, please welcome Zara.
Hi guys. Yeah, beautiful conversation again. Beautiful poem as usual. Yeah, there was yeah, this resonates a lot with some kind of thinking I've been doing lately around some of the words around like effortless connection and limitless ease. The words kind of control and blame and judgment are so powerful, and we put so much effort out of the energy of, previous experiences or things that have happened, and there's blame and there's lack of forgiveness and there's revenge and all sorts of powerful forces at play in all our life experiences. And recently, over the last maybe couple of months, I suppose, I've been really trying to think, even, how do you get to a point where you can be effortless in everything? Because sometimes even during heart math breathing, for example, I'll have my sensor on and I'll be actually effortly with effort trying to get the best score possible and be as high coherent as possible. And again, it defeats the purpose in many ways because you're effortfully trying and endeavoring to do something. And what I've really been intentionally trying to do in the last couple of weeks in particular is get to a space of effortless connection, of effortless simply just forget about expectations and coherence score and simply, which isn't always simple, simply be in the moment effortlessly and experience effortless connection, experience effortless and limitless, unlimited ease. And I think they are the foundations of what we're talking about today of equanimity in a world that's so conditioned into doing and forcing and doing and putting pressure and blaming and judging. The very basis of those is about observing and getting beneath the effort to engage and let go of those things and forgive those things we so forcefully engage with from the power of effortlessness, basically. So I've been really intentionally, without effort, uh, engaging with these things from a point of ease rather than from the intention of trying to really engage with them. And back to that word emerge and inviting to emerge what will emerge out of that type of energy. If we can begin to really be in the moment effortlessly and then just from that space allow it to emerge will emerge. So yeah, that for me maybe is the definition of equanimity, and a great place to begin to forgive and let go, I guess, as well,
Thank you, Seamus. Beautiful. Um, the thing about the only thing about that is I think that, I mean, maybe because I always refer to my effort, my yoga practice, and there is a balance. Um, there is effort in that your structure and your firm. The question is how much effort, because when you effort too much, it's kind of like you said, it's forced, and most of the time you get hurt. It's like you're expending too much energy and you're too rigid. So there's no equanimity at all. It's too one-sided. There's no middle way. And then if you're too lax and too effortless, you'd like fall over, So there's a balance between the two. And so, how do we find that middle point? And some of it is like when we talk about getting quiet so you know yourself, because there are people who over effort all the time. That's just their personality. It's like, oh my gosh, we're gonna push our way through this. We're gonna do this no matter what, you know. And then there are people who never put in any effort at all. And so I think some of it is trying to navigate where you are on any given day and how much effort on that day, if any, you need to put in. Like I look at myself, and that's why I think the practice changes every day for me because I'm in a different space. So some days I'm tired and like putting in too much effort is just not going to happen. And my effort is showing up and just being on my mat, whether I take child's pose that entire time. But, yeah, I had everybody in a pose the other day and I said, I'll come back in an hour, because everybody looked so comfortable. So it was like, oh, do I really want to bother them and have them move? So yeah, dynamically, I like that, Seamus, dynamically noticing.
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? How we can be one thing and all things all at once. So it's and I loved when we were doing the research where they were it kind of talks about like that, well, about dynamically noticing and engaging. Actually, they were talking about how really for equanimity there's really two levels of it. There's the one where we find our own inner balance and you know sort of finding that calm and ease within, regardless of the external fluctuations that might be happening around us. But it was interesting with it. They were saying the second part of equanimity is the looking over, just being able to see the full context and not being limited to one side. So not engaging in one side or the other, but just basically seeing an overview, like I pictured, I don't know why, when I was reading it, I was thinking I pictured like a drone overview, like overlooking everything far enough distance to not really feel attached to necessarily the outcome or what was happening, but still observing and noticing. So I like that, dynamically noticing. That's
Yeah,
the way to put it.
I also really, sorry, Mary Jane.
It's okay, go ahead.
No, I also really liked that sort of that broader view and the perspective that could come with equanimity. And it reminded me of a story that this one I was actually, present for with the person. So it was with Pema Chodron, if anybody's ever heard of her, who's a wonderful, wonderful meditation teacher, Tibetan Buddhist meditation. And she's amazing. And I did a workshop with her at Omega. And she talked about a personal story of hers. She's the head of a monastery in Nova Scotia. And so, she's quite well known in the mindfulness world. And so she was visiting a monastery in France, I think. And so every day she was on the monastery and she was working. And because everybody has a job, but she really was very limited. She has a lot of physical health issues and everything. And so literally they had her licking stamps on envelopes because it was the only thing they could give her to do where she wasn't like going to hurt herself and she could do it. And so she talks about feeling like really small, like, like her ego went, whoosh. And then during the afternoons, she would go down, walk down the path to the village, and she would lead a meditation. Literally, they had set her up a throne, like it was satin drapes and cushions, and they would they made this whole big deal. So from feeling really small to feeling really huge. And she got home and her teacher said, so how was it? It was really good for you to have those both experiences. And she said, not yet. So it just made me laugh that here this person was so human, like going from one extreme to another, and how trying to find equanimity and balance in that situation, and realizing, like, even with her, it is always a constant practice. And it's not something that happens immediately necessarily, but can we give something enough space to be able to find equanimity around it with time? I think a lot of times we expect these things, or at least I do, it's like going to be immediate. It's going to happen and I'm going to go into equanimity, miraculously somehow. And allowing yourself that space and the grace to be able to, process the way you need to process and to get that perspective so that you have a view that maybe feel more balanced or more spacious, a space of equanimity. Zara, good morning. Well, it's good afternoon for you.
Good afternoon. And yeah, thank you for letting me in late. We were stuck in traffic and getting back from drama, so I got here as quick as I could. So yeah, I love this topic today, equanimity. I hadn't looked out the actual title that was put on the post invite. I just have a regular session here. And what you were talking about, that space in between to try and figure out me and what's right for me. I ran a pilot of a group of men supporting men, just to give you an idea. And I knew that they would connect naturally because we connect on the how. And so, yeah, straight from the word go, it was like, yeah, these guys liked each other. They were sharing freely about themselves. There was one person in particular that I knew prefers one-to-ones over like being in a crowd or sitting in the audience. Like they would get totally drained from being in that. Now, they weren't aware that this was their dynamic. But when I highlighted every time I put them in charge of something, like they felt better after the session. And when someone else was taking charge, like they felt drained. And I had a recent update from them to say, I've had a hard day at work. So, like, I'm going to miss the session today because I knew the person hosting was going to be in charge and asking all sorts of questions about stuff that they weren't even interested in. So, like, he apologized nicely to say, I can't make the session. And it's great to have that self-awareness about when you attend, like where you attend, what's happening, like, is that going to suit you? Is that going to impact you in a positive or a negative way? And just communicating that and other people understanding why, that you're not just making excuses for a hell of it, but having that self-awareness, I think, really helps with understanding how to protect our energy levels. And so it was a really fantastic pilot to run. And I think all 6 of them learned about not just about each other, but about what drives them individually, what gives them energy. And yeah, everyone's a lot happier now because they've got at least 4 other friends. So yeah, that was a really nice thing to do, I think. And my husband also got involved. And yeah, he's formed some quite close friendships with the guys, one in particular, and they're just like regularly meeting up now. So I think it definitely helps to get to know what people are driven by. Yeah, like the why and how we talk about. So yeah, thank you for allowing me to share, Jen.
Thank you, Zara. A great story. And I think it is. I mean, I think it's, I talked about it on my mat, knowing where I am. And recently I was writing for a chapter for a new book that Seamus and I are working on together. And I talked about that, like coming into a situation and realizing that basically it's the same situation. And my 2 different experiences with that situation, like one was fantastic and one was pretty bad. And the common denominator was me, you know, that was the common thing that went forward. And the spaces I was in on those 2 days, and in one that I really didn't want to be there for whatever reason. I mean, I know why, but I really didn't want to. And I had a really bad experience.
Yeah,
And then,
funny you say that, Jan. Sorry to interrupt. There was a day he arrived and he'd had a hard day anyways. And when he hosted, he felt fantastic afterwards. Like the feedback was fantastic. He had the self-awareness that if he wasn't hosting, he would feel more drained. That's what I mean. Like even though he arrived,
right.
or arrived in the same kind of mindset, it was like basically going along with how he likes to be kind of thing. So we're talking about that effortless being involved, that connection, contributing. That's what I think Seamus was talking about. Is okay, I like to be like this. Is this environment going to suit me? Yeah. Or am I going to have to put that hell of a lot of effort in just to show up? I
No,
think that's really what we're getting at. Yeah. Isn't it, Seamus?
well, and I wasn't disagreeing with that or commenting, but I think some of it is knowing also how we show up in a space on a given day. And then also, I've been in situations where like I was talking about this with another guy that's in the book with us on Wednesday, I mean, and I was saying that I was with this group for a year, and finally I just said, this group just doesn't resonate with me. Like, I just don't feel it, and knowing that about myself, and nothing critical. And but I was for a year I was basically forcing myself to attend, saying I had to give it time and I had to let it evolve, and I had to, make sure that I just wasn't, because I tend to be kind of shy and like in-person networking kind of things. And I was like, finally I was just like, this is not my tribe. And knowing that and just saying, okay, these people are just not my people, and that's okay. And now I'm in another group, which is much better, in person. It's a much better fit for me. The people are much more hospitable. They seem really interested. This group, the first group, it was like, you know, uh, I don't think they were interested. They were very, I guess, maybe self-absorbed. And yes, Austin, know thyself. If you know thyself, then to thine own self be true.
I was just about to finish the quote, so thank you, Jane.
You're welcome.
Of course I was, right?
Yes, 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 of course you were.
But yeah, well, that's knowing yourself is the key point to really having equanimity. To
Mhm.
know yourself and forgive yourself in other terms if that's what needs to happen too for you know I mean as they say, right, you can only know what you know, and you can't know what you don't. So it's all a learning process, and really just you know the whole point, right, is not to withdraw from the places that you are in, but just balancing those things in a way that feels right for you.
Absolutely. And I mean, I love what you shared, because I think that, um, know yourself, know basically what you need. The other thing that reminded me of is like, and don't compare yourself to anybody else.
Absolutely.
Because I think that, we all have we all are unique in our own way. And so just, thinking you're going to be like someone else in a different, in a similar situation is just not, I don't know. I have not often found that helpful.
Me either. It's but yeah, it's an interesting perspective because you know some of the articles spoke to things like that courage
Hmm.
is born of equanimity, and I love that concept, right? It's like it's moral spiritual courage to know thyself, to trust your intuition, to lean into that um you know and hopefully give some grace and ease to those around you or situations around you that you have no control over, and hopefully letting go some of that, the negative things that may come from those.
Uh, yeah, we'll let Alice talk and then we can open up again.
Yeah, I love the heart that you put as like an ocean, the one that you put in the LinkedIn, the picture of the world. It's like the world map is full of water, the ocean. So it's like a steady heart in an unsteady world, right? So basically my acronym for this week, the equanimity is a very long word for an acronym. So E stands for everyone, and Q stands for queues. Me are queuing in the line of queue, and undivided attention. So everyone queues undivided attention, needing intermit mindfulness into you. So in our mind, we always seeking for intimacy of the mindfulness. So within our heart and in the mind, we always want undivided attention of others and all that. So it's a very long word, but it makes me think longer time in this economy. So I like the word community. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Al, as always. It is there is something about the word though, equanimity, that I actually love words that sound like what they mean. And this to me has, I think the length gives it somehow this kind of balance to it. Like there, I'd have to look up the word etymology because now I'm curious. You got me curious, Al. But there's something about the word that truly sounds like it feels. Um, and so, um, but one of the things that, yeah, Mary Jane, did you want to share something? I was going to share something, but do you have something you'd like to say? Just so I'll look what I was going to say.
Um, well, I had a thought originally, but I don't remember what it was. It
Okay.
was at this point. Maybe it'll come back to me and maybe it won't. We'll see.
Yes, we will. Yeah, I love it. Um, yeah, I mean, I think part of it is also is, this was an interesting kind of idea that was in one of the articles that the need for balance, too little equanimity invites chaos, and too much without compassion leans toward emotional freezing. And the value of small acts. Equanimity may show up in tiny pauses, small shifts in perspective rather than grand dramatic moments, which is what I was referring to before. And so I like this idea of finding equanimity in little tiny spaces. Um, and to me, it's almost like it begins there. And then we allow or we can find equanimity around other spaces, larger things. But it's almost like finding equanimity, um, in a moment in a day where you can find equanimity and true, like you're integrated, you're present. Maybe the past is there, but you're not overly attached. You're not thinking or necessarily preoccupied with the future, and you're truly present. And there is that space in the middle, beyond extremes, right? Um, so something
Exactly.
about that, something about those tiny pauses.
Yeah, well, it's those tiny pauses are really key because they really allow that space. It frees up space, as you were saying earlier, to let the balance come in. And I like the concept really that equanimity is not disengagement, but wise engagement. So harkening back to what you're speaking earlier about knowing yourself, um,
Hmm.
and what that means to you as far as moving forward for yourself. But you know, forgiveness too also is like, well, seeing the harm that may be, the brokenness, the suffering that's outside or inside, but allowing the space so that we don't collapse underneath their weight, because they can be heavy at times.
At times. And that's when the small spaces also speaks to me.
Yes.
I think in those challenging times, sometimes it's those small spaces of equanimity or however you'd like to label it that allows you to go on.
Yes.
It allows you a moment of breath so that whatever you're going through has maybe softens a teeny bit. And it's to me, I know personally, that's a lot of, some of the times in my lives, that's what's kept me going, is those tiny little spaces of equanimity or peace among the chaos that was happening. Seamus, please.
Yeah, thanks, Jan. I mean, that I think that's a lovely point, actually. And the whole idea of a seed, like seeds of equanimity, like from these tiny seeds that we experience, and it's back to experience, from that effortless experience, that's a seed, and then you experience, oh God, what was that? You get curious with it, and it kind of blends then that idea of rain, back from Jack Cornfield in his lovely book, The Wise Heart. And I kind of see the image of the rain nurturing that seed. And rain is recognition, goes back to noticing. It's back to acceptance. It's back to investigating. And then it's back to non-identification. And I think, it's the rain falling on those seeds of equanimity. That's how I'm seeing it in my head right now, that will nurture, and help you identify with all those things in our lives that we try and control or we blame, or that we're stuck in. And it's repeated reps of these rain showers, through recognizing, through investigating, through accepting, through being with, that will nurture those seeds, those tiny seeds of equanimity you spoke about, that will allow us to actually experience more and more and more, and invite other people, like through our experience and in conversations like this, to be able to actually create the space to experience effortless equanimity from our inside out, and use rain, for example, or whatever other process you want, that works for you in your life, as the door opener to nurturing those, beautiful moments of equanimity that we can all build on, I think.
Um, Thank you, Seamus. I love that because I think that there is something about whatever works for you to find that space within your life. And that's why I put in this whole idea of practice because I think it is a practice. Um, I constantly go back to yoga because that's my practice and one of my practices. But the thing of um, practices, it's like in yoga, we always say it's basically a regimented time to play with these ideas, feelings, whatever, these practices, the practice of equanimity, the effort versus the ease. So, with the thought that you become accustomed to it, it becomes something that feels like it fits for you. Like it's like a piece of clothing you put on that feels comfortable. So, it becomes a way of being beyond the mat. So it's like you have this experience of, oh, okay, this is what an equanimity feels like. It feels like this in my body. It feels like this in my breath. It feels like this in you know, in my emotions. And then going off the mat or going out into the world, you know what it feels like now. You've had that experience. So you know when it happens. And it also keeps you coming back because, and I can't even tell you, I was talking to somebody the other day and I was saying that, for a while I had kind of left my own practice. I mean, I was teaching, but I wasn't doing much on my own. And then during the summer when I got injured and then doing, and then getting back and starting to try to move, all of a sudden it was like I woke up. It was like, oh my gosh, why am I not practicing? And it happened far before my my accident. I had been kind of lapse, and now I would say almost every day at some point. I mean, every now and then, depending on my schedule, I miss, but I get on for some period of time. And how it's so interesting that even, I don't have to go far. I mean, I have to go upstairs, to practice in my yoga room. So it's not like I have to travel in the car. How easy it is for me to think of excuses or to think I have too much to do to be able to do that. Now I haven't been like that, but at points in my life, I'll be like, I have no time. And those are the times I need it most, of course. But so true. But it's a practice, and that's why I think it's practice. It's patience with yourself. It's compassion with yourself. And then it's gradual over time. Like I think those little snippets, little by little, Eric Zimmer says, little by little, little becomes a lot. And I think they add up.
Beautiful observance, Jan. They, and self-observance too. I love that. It's amazing how we can be full of so many excuses. And it's true. Usually at the time when we need something the most, that's the time where we're too busy. So I love that perspective. So thank you for sharing that very real and relatable story.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, it's so true, right? My to-do list is too long at the moment. I don't have time, and so,
Oh yeah.
but let me tell you, there's always room, and it's not like if and then and some of it is priorities, is sitting there and saying, okay, well, if that does not like really, if I leave that to the next day, is that really going to, if I don't have time, if I need that 20 minutes, half an hour, is that really going to, what's a worth, the other's more of an investment in myself on the inside, and the to-do list is much more an investment in somehow on the outside.
I love how you've adopted Darlene's to-do list.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Later you'll notice.
Yes, yes. No, but I think some of it is that choice, like the conscious choice of saying, when with Seamus with Heart Math, it's that commitment that you say, okay, I'm making this commitment to myself on the inside versus, you know, the stuff that really the importance is probably different. Let's just say that. And maybe more external.
Exactly. What a beautiful conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You see, as a friend would say.
Yes. I love the quote by Anne Frank. Thank you.
It's just really showing the that whole beingness, right? Of recognizing, that overview that I was talking about is like acceptance and forgiveness within yourself, and then looking outwards and as an overview and realizing that um as a whole, people really are good at heart. And I just love that idea because it's just, as we were speaking to space today, it allows the love and forgiveness to seep in.
Absolutely. It's the love of self,
Mm-hmm.
the love of everyone else.
That's right.
I mean, I think when we're able to do that, the humanness of ourselves we become more human, like we embody being a human being, and we have that ability to do that for others.
Absolutely. Very wise words for one so young.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, and to what I was speaking was this, and I love this from one of the articles. The path includes relapses, resistance, small openings, and gentle recommitment. And that was a was what I was referring to, is that, going back, and that going back, I mean, I've practiced for, oh gosh, now about 26 years, 25, 26 years. And how often have I left? Probably in the grand 26 years, not that much. But at points, I have left my own practice anyway. And then all of a sudden, you're like, and then you ask yourself, like, why did I do that again? Like, how did I get here? Almost like in shock.
The
It's like
realization, right? The self-awareness. When it comes
self-awareness.
to wonder, why did that happen? Well, it's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking?
So awesome.
Austin, please.
Thank you, Jan and MJ. I don't believe this approach or perspective was taken, but I remember in the opening, thoughts were stirred immediately about forgiveness and being okay either way, and the mantra of what other people think of me is none of my business. In my mind, being Austin, goes to principle, and I was excited to hear everybody's contribution to this. I heard words like compassion and understanding and equanimity, and I love it, love it, love it, love it. So, in my approach to principle thought patterns, I like that I can use forgiveness in a way that almost separates the idea of separation. So, when I think of forgiveness and how does it apply to our topic today, being okay either way. And even if I bring in a practical example, someone does a wrong to you, that's a your relation to whatever that is, and they forgive you. I'm sorry. And they apologize. There's the word I was looking for. In a way, the forgiveness is not, in my perspective now, I guess I should disclaim that, um, contingent on other. It's a very personal, which is why I go to the principle thought of it, relation to it, almost in a way, an apology does not denote whether or not you experience that understanding, that economy, that compassion, that forgiveness. And so in my own adding here, I just wanted to highlight, um, here's that word, the introspective parts of forgiveness and how important it is to know your space, where you're showing up, know thyself, all the things we've been talking about. So I'm complete.
Thank you, Austin, because I absolutely agree. It is not contingent on what someone else says, and or whether you're in the presence of somebody or they ever apologize at all. And I know personally for me, I had to get to the space where I realized I couldn't move on unless I forgave. And the fact that, for a time, it was my inability to forgive that kept me trapped in the situation emotionally. I'm talking about my divorce. So my forgiveness of my ex-husband. He never apologized for what he did, nor do I expect him ever to apologize. I mean, I'm not in touch with him, so that's not an issue. But for me to move on out of that, I had to forgive him, myself, um, take responsibility. I mean, it had nothing to do with whether those words actually ever left his mouth, because they never did. It had much more to do about with me coming to a place that realizing that I could not go on with I couldn't go on and move forward if I was still attached, like basically like tethered to that experience. It was the way it was. And eventually, and I mean, it's always still a process, and things resurface and things happen. But, if I look at the last period, these years, oh my gosh, I've moved on, you know.
I love that, Jan. I love that you moved on. But yeah, that's true. It's sometimes those words will never cross some people's lips for sure. And that's where they are, their journey. But thank
Yeah,
goodness you're at a place in your journey where you've recognized that and you've learned to forgive yourself.
absolutely. And I think sometimes that is the hardest person to forgive.
Oh, absolutely. We're much more judgmental about ourselves often than others. As we've discussed here before, we don't often, or sometimes we forget, maybe we do, in our best attempts, give ourselves the same grace and ease, love and compassion um, that we would extend to somebody else. Um, but what a wonderful experience we have here to be able to share these thoughts with others and be able to explore these concepts with other people too, and realize that we're not alone in this folly.
Folly, yes, I like that word. Thank you, folly. Yes. Austin, please.
I'd love to add just one more piece. I think it's also powerful in when you afford yourself that forgiveness. I think it also almost gives other people agency to realize, oh, I can afford myself this too. And that might be in a entangled, type of dynamic where you do receive an apology, and then it's actually received. Sometimes it's not, but I think it's also grand to remember we are entangled and we're all a part of it and we're all together. And sometimes, like think of modeling, or yeah, I like that word. So modeling, it almost shows other people without needing any external force or push. Hey, yeah, you can forgive yourself too. And that might mean in their world forgiving somebody else, but giving themselves that agency.
Absolutely. Beautiful.
Love that. I love that, Austin, because I think you're right. And I think it allows, gives other people agency to, even if they don't apologize, to acknowledge what happened. Um, Recently I was having a conversation with my mom, and and it was about something that I had been very angry about for a very long time. Let it go when I was like younger, my 20s or something. I was very angry about something that she and my father had done and everything. And very recently, she made this comment of like, it was a mistake on their part. Like they made the wrong choice. They thought they were doing something that was good for me, and they made the wrong choice. And they probably should have made another choice, and that would have been better for me. And I think not apologizing, but just acknowledging that what they had done had been, had a negative impact on me. And I think that that was all I needed. Like, I didn't need her to apologize because really they had done nothing wrong, which is what I realized, many, many years ago. I didn't need her to apologize to me because they were doing it out of the goodness of their hearts, out of love. It just happened to be the wrong decision. But it was very nice and felt, kind of, I don't want to use the word, I don't know what word to use because satisfying is not a good word. It just felt complete or whole that she actually acknowledged um, that it wasn't the right choice. Like they should have done something different. And sometimes it's just that acknowledgement of action. Mary Jane, anything else?
Yeah, I love that, Jana. As I put into the chat, it's good awareness on your part, right? It's like it's about you acknowledging that the recognition and awareness that your mom came to, and realizing that that's everybody comes to their understanding at different times. But it's beautiful that she was able to share with you that recognition and awareness of the situation, of something that she realized hurt you deeply. So even though that in some ways you had let go of that hurt, um, there's a certain level of apology built into it, isn't there? So, but it's lovely that she was able to recognize that and come to that recognition herself.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mary Jane. And I think the other thing as we're talking about it, it just made me realize is I don't know that I would have had that same reaction had she just apologized and not acknowledged.
Yes, because apology can be surface, right? People,
Right.
speaking as a Canadian, people always say that Canadians are always saying "I'm sorry." So, there's a surface level of "I'm sorry," And then there's the deeper level of being sorry, that comes with like awareness and recognition, I think. So, um,
Absolutely. And I think that that's what, as we're talking here, and that's what I was just like, had she apologized, and then it would not have been as meaningful as her acknowledging, and because in the acknowledgement, it was more she saw me for who I was
yes, that
and
recognition
created
is
that recognition as opposed to just an apology where you're kind of like, well, I'm sorry, and you're not seeing the person in their entirety.
absolutely, wow. This is such a
Well,
wonderful
you just
conversation.
saved me a therapy session. No, I'm kidding.
There you go. Glad I could help out. But that's so cool. So now, Janice, I think it's time for you to bring us a little bit of therapy with
Yes, it
the
is.
meditation.
Thank you all. So take a moment and find a comfortable seat. Feel free to close your eyes. If you allow your body to relax to the extent that you feel comfortable and just not with a rigidity, but with a space of balance. Take a deep breath in and a slow breath out. Allow your breath to settle into a gentle rhythm, like a wave arriving on the shore and going back out. Begin by sensing the natural ground of equanimity within you, that space of equanimity. The quiet steadiness beneath the ever-changing waves of thought, emotion, circumstance. Imagine yourself as the stillness at the center of a turning wheel. The world continues to spin, but you remain grounded in balance. Now bring to heart the practice of forgiveness, which restores balance to our relationships with others, with ourselves, and with life. Let each phrase be an offering, a release, and a softening. Silently repeat, if I have hurt or harmed anyone, knowingly or unknowingly, I ask their forgiveness. Feel yourself placing this intention into the vastness of your heart, trusting it to teach and to reach wherever it is needed. Then bring to mind those who may have hurt you. Hold them gently without judgment. If anyone has hurt or harmed me, knowingly or unknowingly, I forgive them. Notice how forgiveness creates spaciousness, softening tightness, loosening the grip of resentment, making room for peace. Now turn inward with compassion. You may remember times of self-blame, regret, or harsh judgment. With tenderness, repeat. For all the ways I have hurt or harmed myself, knowingly or unknowingly, I offer forgiveness. Feel the balm of kindness spreading through your body, calming the restless parts of your heart. Sit for a few breaths in the spaciousness that forgiveness brings. Sense how this practice naturally ripens into equanimity, a heart that can hold joy and sorrow, praise and blame, gain and loss, steadiness and love. If your mind wanders, return to your breath or to the simple words: balance, compassion, forgiveness. When you feel ready, bring your awareness back to your body. Wiggle your fingers and toes. Open your eyes gently and carry the sense of equanimity and forgiveness into the rest of your day.
It's beautiful, Jan. And just before we close out for today's session, we wanted to share with you a lovely piece that Jan actually found, and it's regarding the four mantras. So it's regarding the Ho'oponopono, which is about taking responsibility for everything that affects your state of being. It's the art of acceptance, forgiveness, and cleansing of the energies that you attract into your life. So the first mantra, I'm sorry. And when you say I'm sorry, you're recognizing and accepting responsibility for the actions, thoughts, and emotions that have caused conflict to manifest into your reality. Please forgive me. The words please forgive me are said as a request to make amends with your higher self and the universe alike. Thank you. Thank you is the opportunity to show gratitude to your higher self, as well as the universe, for allowing your negative thoughts, actions, and emotions to be cleared. I love you. I love you can be emitted out to the universe, God, source, energy, as a form of gratitude. When you use the words in this way, you are saying, I love you for allowing me this earth experience. And so it is.
Thank you all for joining us today. Please take a moment to connect during your week with us. Mary Jane and I would love to have a conversation. We welcome you to share this recording or to share, our groups with anyone who you think might be inspired or just maybe need a little bit of support and you feel like it would nurture them. Our next online workshop is October 19th, Sunday,
Yes.
from a night, I think. Sunday, October 19th at 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And so we're really excited about that. For Mary Jane and anybody out there who's Canadian who happens to be listening, a happy Thanksgiving weekend to you all. And to everyone else, obviously, have a wonderful, wonderful weekend and a great day, a great week ahead. And hopefully we'll see you next Friday or hear you at least.
Yes, and thank you for that, Jan. And just know that I know this is the definitely for in a season of gratitude. So just know that I'm grateful and filled with love and joy for having all of you here in my community and my support. So thank you so much for that. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Yes, we are grateful for you all.